Hey Fran, hope all's good. Let's have a look at some of your footage. Sorry the delay on this one. I've just been away for a good few days and been struggling to get anywhere near a computer really. Right, let's have a look. Okay, so on these squats at the moment, I've still got quite a tendency to want to shift everything forward. Okay, so what I mean by that is let's have a look at drawing a center line for you. So these things are never perfect. Okay, the angles are never absolutely perfect and spot on and stuff like that. Okay, but let's have a look at with that center line on there. You can see kind of just a. We want basically the weight over the middle of the foot as much as possible, okay, for the sake of balance and for the sake of that tripod foot where the little toe, big toe and heel are all in contact with the floor. We want that to be basically to be as stable as possible. So the more we shift weight to the front or to the back determines basically what musculature we're kind of favouring and also what we need to strengthen or where we need to shift back or to from, okay? So if we have a look. Okay, now look how far forward in front of that line that the bar has ended up. Okay, huge distance here. Okay, so basically at this point, so if we think of it in terms of like angles, you know, and fulcrums and all these kind of things. Okay, this. All right. So what we're doing here is quite inefficient. Okay, the most powerful muscles in the body really are going to be around here. Okay, and what we've done is we've shifted so the bar distance from there to is a huge great big distance now. Okay, so glutes are basically having zero impact on how the bar's moving. Okay, that would correlate with kind of what the physios come out with, basically saying like weak glutes, and this is a prime example of your body just not wanting to use the glutes like at all really. So we've got to. So this is where taking you out of heels is one of the big factors, because the heels are shoving you even further forward. Okay, which is not what we want. So let's have a look again. And that's why you'll notice kind of in that bottom position there's a little bit of like a shunt forward, like a little bit of a rock forward. And there's that kind of like a little bit of like middle gap of where you've shoved everything forward, brought it all back. Because if we look here, for example. Okay, so you're in this position, okay? Now, ideally, even if you did get the bar this far forward, okay, in an ideal world, the knees would start to come backwards and the hips would start to rise up and the chest would rise all at the same time. What we've got for you at the moment is the first thing that happens is your knees extend and your hips and your back don't do anything, okay? So here, okay, so the back angle stayed exactly the same, okay, through there. It's just the knees have shot back to try and balance that bar out. But from this point, that's basically all quads, and then you correct it, the bar comes back into that right position. Ooh. So you fire backwards, and then here the bar is basically where we need it to be from the get-go, almost, you know, almost over the center of the foot, just as you're getting right back into that top position. So what we've got to do, friends, we've really got to focus on getting the knees out as much as possible, okay? The more you can drive the knees out, the more you don't have to rely on shoving all the weight forward in order to get that benefit of keeping the bar over the midfoot, okay? So again, these angles are never perfect, but basically what we're doing at the moment in the squat is basically relying wholeheartedly on kind of like that bounce and that stretch out of the bottom, which isn't ideal, basically. In terms of maximal strength and maximal force production, it's not ideal. Elbows under. You probably brought them under a little too much there, to be honest. Like, really cranked them under. They don't have to be quite so much, because then the bar looks like it's resting the back of the hand here. Just try to keep them neutral. Okay, but that's kind of what we're looking for. And overall, that looks like a much better squat. Much better, much more in control of that. You have actually opened up the knees a little better. Okay. Just going to skip over the bench a minute and just have a look at the rest of these squats. These look better. These more controlled squats look nicer. It is difficult to tell what's going on in terms of bar path. So if you can, I know it's a real pain in the ass when you've got all these platforms lined up side by side. But the more you can try and get it from the side on, it just helps that a little bit in terms of seeing where the bar's moving. Yeah, that is a much, much better set looking like so far. But the key for you is knees out. Really got to try and like open your legs as much as possible, okay? If you're anything like me, it's going to feel quite dodgy on the inside of the leg, okay? It's going to feel like almost like your groin is about to like pull apart, okay? But you're fine, okay? You can always sort of like muscle through that, okay? Because what it seems to be is a weakness of the glutes and a weakness of the adductors inside the leg here, basically the inner thighs, because you'll notice as well the knees come in a little bit, so the quads turn on, the adductors can't deal with that pressure, so the knees kind of fly in, and then you get pulled back out again. It's nothing major. It's learning to use the glutes and use the hips a little more. Okay. Yeah, no issues with the stiff legs. No issues with those whatsoever. Slow them down, really. So this is one of those ones where we want to spend as much time under tension as possible. Okay, you can't go slow enough on the descent of the of these RDLs, these stiff legs. Yeah, with those can't go. Let's have a look at the bench. Yeah, touch and go works. Nice. Always pulling the chest through. Yep. Butt came up a tiny little bit on that one. There's definitely a lot more to coach in the way of the bench. But at the moment, I need you to bring the bar out, bring it to your chest, push it away. Lots. So I really want to kind of like hammer down the squat and get that nailed before we start really moving on to the bench. Because at the moment, the bench is moving nicely. And again, I just want to get certain things nailed down with the squat first. So if we go back to that first video, because that was probably the first the best example of it. So obviously we want the bar to travel in as straight a line as possible, okay? Now for you, even if we just look at your kind of proportions, very long legs as it is, and you have great ankle mobility. So this combination leads to basically a tendency to want to stand relatively narrow, sort of unlock the ankles, they start drifting forward, the rest of the body kind of goes down with it, and then you kind of can use that stretch reflex to kind of like bounce out of the bottom. So it's really about turning the knees out as much as possible, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a video from a guy called Matt Wenning. Now, Matt Wenning is, I mean, he's old school. He's, you know, when they used to do like multiply powerlifting and multiple world record holder. And he's the complete bipolar opposite to you in that he basically, his shins would stay completely vertical and he would just completely turn his knees out and just lower himself down to the ground. But it worked for him because he was very strong in the posterior chain, really strong glutes, and could maintain the balance because he was in a squat suit. But he kind of has a good video. It's a little long, you know, I mean, it's about 15 minutes long, but it's very, very good in explaining basically the concept of keeping the knees out and some good cues for you to think through. So I'll tag that on the end of this video. But the key for you, what I want you to think about this week is if we stand half an inch wider, and I want you to turn the toes out that a little bit more. Okay, and I always want you, so all the way down through the squat, I constantly want you to think about like knees out, knees out, knees out. Okay, I'm not going to do like ask you to put a band around your knees and stuff like that. I think that's a little bit of overkill, but it's knees out, knees out, knees out as much as possible. Big ribs, so you're always showing off the ribs the whole time. And once you send that first video, first load of footage back of that, we'll have a look and just kind of see how that cue's going in, because it maybe we might just get you onto a box again for another 1 or 2 sessions of the week. Really practice that knees out, because eventually it's kind of one of those with the amount of leg extensions and single leg work and stuff, the quads are going to get stronger and be able to accommodate this. It's just one of those where I don't want you to rely solely on your quads like I do. It's my own fucking like problem. But for me, it's easy enough just to unlock, shove everything forward and bounce out. But that's taken a long time's worth of strengthening of the quads to be able to deal with whatever I can. And it should still really be higher. In terms of programming. So basically what I've done is sessions 1 to 3 are your important ones to get in throughout the week. Okay. Similar sort of layout. And that you'll be pressing every day. Well, every one of these 3 at least, and then basically the 4th day is there as a case of if you're able to get it in, awesome, but the 4th day is bonus, because I can understand you are one of the people who actually genuinely is actually busy when you say like, oh, I can't make so many sessions, like you're actually having to be somewhere and do an important job. So the 4th day is very much kind of a bolt on, and then we'll just kind of see how many of these weeks we can kind of plug together back to back. You've already done session 1 already, awesome. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play with slightly higher intensity on the deadlift to begin with, and then we're just going to be hammering the legs. So leg extensions are in there, back squats are already in there, back squats again. Okay, so we're just going to be hammering this over and over and over until we start to get some response, or there's an immediate coaching cue needs to come in there. Over time, once we start getting a little bit more assured, and everything's looking a bit smooth, then we can start filling these things out, and then your dashboard can start taking form really. So I'll link that video for you, Fran, at the end of this. Like I said, just even if you just have it on in the car or something like that, he doesn't really physically show a lot. He just talks through a lot of good concepts that I'm big fan of, and he explains it a lot better than I do. So let me know if there's any more issues, but and try and get me some footage of the deadlifts this week as well if you can. I just want to have another look at those at this RP8 sort of territory. Okay, all the best.